Good morning, class. Now, I want us to proceed and look at Charles' law. Charles Gay-Lussac's law. Charles Gay-Lussac's law. Now, this law states that at a fixed mass of a gas, the volume of the gas is directly proportional to the temperature of the gas at a constant pressure. So we say that the volume of the gas is directly proportional to the temperature of the gas. Now, when we describe it numerically, we say that V1 over T1 is equal to V2 over T2. Now, when we describe this one with a graph, we'll get a kind of a graph which is straight line, because we are equating volume with absolute temperature. And then in expressing, we find that V1 over T1 is equal to V2 over T2. That is when we are trying to describe or look at two gases at the same pressure. Now we can also, from here, we can be able to get the value of V1. So V1 is equal to V2 over T2 times T1. Again, you can also be able to identify T1. So T1 is equal to V2 over T2 that is okay, we have said V1 from our equation here. You can see V1 over T1 is equal to V2 over T2. We are looking for T1. So in T1, we'll say it is V2 over T2 divided by, that is, let's multiply, divided by V1, that's you're looking for P1. So basically it is V2 over T2 times 1 over V1. Now, let's now look for V2. V2, we can also equate it to be is equal to V2 is equal to V1 over T1. Okay, let us do it this way. We are saying V1 is equal to V2. V1 over T1 is equal to V2 over T2. To make it simpler, you can do the cross multiplication. You say we are looking for T1. We are looking for T1. We'll just begin with V1 first. So V1 times T2 is equal to T1 times V2. And now when you want to equate for V1, we'll say it is T1 V2 over V1 T1 V2 over T2. Now, that is when looking for V1. Let's now look for T1. Okay, assume this one that we are done. Let us do it that way. Cross multiply to avoid confusion. Now let's now look for we'll look for T1. So again, V1 over T1 is equal to V2 over T2. Now when we equate our values, we cross multiply again. Okay, so we multiply that way and also this way. So V1 times T2, V1 times T2 is equal to T1 times V2. We are looking for T1. Okay, let's look for T1. T1 is on this side. So we say that T1 is equal to V1 T2 over V2. That is how we get for the value of T1, that's temperature 1. Let's now equate for V2. V2. Again, you first cross multiply. That is V2 over T2. We are looking for V2. V2. Now when you cross multiply again, we say that V2 times T1 is equal to V1 times T2. So V2 will be V1 times T2 all over T1. That is how we look for V2. And the last one also we can be told to identify or to evaluate is we have looked for V1, T1, V2. So the one we're going to look at is we have T1, we have V1, we have V2. Now we're going to look at for T2. Now T2 now V1 over T1 is equal to V2 over T2. We're looking for T2 now. T2. Okay? T2, again when we multiply, we say T2 times V1 is equal to T1 times V2 when we cross multiply. So we're looking for T2. So T2 becomes T1 V2 over V1. So that is how we can be able to evaluate and get each of these values using the Charles Gay-Lussac's law. Thank you.